Richard McCartney. We're back to a new Simpsons video, and today we are back on my re-reviewing episodes of The Simpsons that I adore, that I admire. And we are back with yet a very classic episode, and we don't really see as many episodes like how good written this episode is. And it is, of course, with Frank Grimes, which RIP to him as well. And this is also one of the darkest episodes as well, I can say, of The Simpsons. But yeah, it starts with Kent's people, with Kent Brockman and showing the backstory and the history of Frank Grimes and getting his diploma. And yeah, Mr. Burns, of course, wants him, which the next day Smithers brings Frank Grimes, and of course Mr. Burns is like, yeah, just put him somewhere, because he now wants to get this dog he sees. So Lenny and Carl come in to see Homer, and they want to go and see Frank Grimes. And Frank Grimes, he is an example of if a human came across the Simpsons universe or cartoon, oh, hiccups, but came across, like, again, if a human being, an actual human, somehow got into a cartoon and has to put up with somebody as stupid, not smart as Homer, again, this is how good of a writing it is. Because, again, Frank Grimes is pretty much like what maybe all human beings would probably be like when they're coming across somebody like Homer. And yeah, Marge is doing these trying to get a name for the license plates, and Bart goes to this betting, and he actually wins a abandoned building, an abandoned factory. And yeah, Homer is, of course, calling, hey, a stretch, and then, okay, Grimy. And yeah, Homer is eating Frank Grimes' lunch. I mean, he does say that it was clearly marked for Frank Grimes. And yeah, then Frank Grimes realizes that somebody's been chewing his pencils. Well, it just so happens Homer's been chewing on his pencils. And then later on, he says that Simpson's got telling Homer he's got a 513. And then, yeah, on his control panel. And I just love that he's got a bucket of water ready for this situation. And he pours it all over his control panel. And Frank Grimes, his face is priceless of how he reacts to it. Again, we don't really get as much clever writing as this as we used to back in the day. And again, this is from season 8. Before the show was claimed to be jumping the shark. And yeah, then he's like, God, he eats like a pig. But I mean, yeah, Homer does eat like an animal. And then he almost, wait for it, but he's like, Frank Grimes is also surprised that unresponsible oaf is the person is for our safety, controlling of our safety. And yeah, he almost drinks acid. Homer almost drinks acid. And of course, Mr. Burns sees that there's a hole in his wall, and of course, gets mad at Frank Grimes. And then Frank Grimes comes over to Homer saying that he never liked him, never liked Homer, and from now on, they're enemies. And yeah, Homer's just upset that he's got an enemy. And Moe just showing this list of enemies, but it's somebody else's enemy list. And he actually suggests that Homer invite Frank Grimes to dinner. Which, yeah, that's a good idea. Which, yeah, he gets the family to try to be on their best and introducing him to his family. And, yeah, Frank Grimes is somewhat kind of jealous at Homer. Because of how yeah, Homer clearly doesn't do his job as he should. because, he sleeps on the job, and, yeah, he just slacks off, and, yeah, Frank Grimes is just impressed with, and astonished with the house that Homer has, and that Frank Grimes says that he lives in a bowling alley that's with another bowling alley. And, yeah, he then, of course, gets more mad at Homer, saying that Homer's the problem with America, and that he's a total fraud. And then he's like, "It was nice meeting you," to Homer's family. And yeah, Homer's family, of course, yeah. And we just say Bart and Milhouse just playing around in Bart's factory, and yeah, Marge says that Homer is not going to work because, Frank Grimes will be there. But of course, Marge does say that he's gonna have to go to work eventually, right? Even if Frank Grimes is there or not, and try to be more, professional with your work. And yeah, he's trying to act all professional, and yeah, Frank Grimes is like, does anybody not see how stupid Homer is? And Lenny and Carl are good guys. They're good guys. They're like, there's nothing wrong with Homer. Like, they stick up to Homer, I guess I can say. And yeah, Frank Grimes then shows of how many accidents that have occurred when it comes to, since he's been safety inspector. And they're like, give Homer a chance. Everybody makes mistakes, even Homer. And then after Frank Grimes saying that he would die a happy man if he can prove that, of how horrible Homer is. And then Lenny and Carl just ignored that, saying, how are just going about their business. And yeah, he then finds this children's model building nuclear plant project contest that is happening and gives it to Homer, and he goes into his car and backs straight into Frank Grimes' car, and he's like, oh god. Yeah, just back straight into Frank Grimes' car, which that's pretty nice. A pretty nice car for a guy that lives in a bowling alley that's with another bowling alley. And yeah, of course Lisa and Marge can hear Homer just at work. And yeah, Bart tells Milhouse that he's going to have to be on night patrol. And he goes to the coffee machine, and it dispenses a mouse, which, yeah, I wouldn't want to drink out of that. And then the next day, yeah, the whole factory is down, and all the rats go into Moe's Tavern. And then we get to the nuclear contest. And of course, well, Smithers loves Ralph's because it's a Malibu Stacy. It's a Malibu Stacy, or not Malibu Stacy, but you know what what is it though? It's not Malibu Stacy, but it's something Stacy. I cannot remember, but that Smithers is of course a fan of, and he's like, "It's pretty impressive, sir." But of course Ralph gets out, and then Martin, yeah, his is pretty impressive, but of course he gets out too. And then Frank Grimes is like, "Look, everybody, Simpsons in a contest for children." And then Lenny and Carl was like, "Shh, you're gonna make us miss the contest." And then Mr. Burns is like, "Can you explain your model, young man?" And of course, Frank Grimes is like, "What's to explain? He's an idiot." And of course, Lenny is like, "Quiet down." Again, being true pals to Homer. And again, just yelling. And again, they're being good friends. And Homer is explaining, which is pretty much the nuclear plant they have now, and just adding a racing stripe. And he gets first prize. And Frank Grimes is like, "But this was a contest for children." And Lenny is like, "Yeah," and Homer beat their brains out. And then this is where it gets dark, but hilarious as well. Or before it gets dark. And this is where Frank Grimes snaps. He's like, "I can't stand it any longer. This plant is insane. Insane, I tell you." And he just goes crazy and tries to make fun at Homer. yeah, trying to make him feel bad. But of course, Homer is stupid, so he's not affected by that. What Grimes is trying to do, and he's like gobbling up, and then he's peeing on the seat and going to work without washing his hands because he's Homer Simpson, and then he doesn't have to do his work, and yeah, of course, talking bad with Mr. Burns, and then touches this very dangerous wiring, and he's like, "Oh, I don't need safety gloves because I'm Homer Simpson." And yeah, he dies. Yeah, he pretty much electrocutes himself to death. And then we cut to his funeral. Yeah, that's... Again, it gets dark pretty fast, though. With Frank Grimes pretty much just getting killed just like that. And we end it with Homer is asleep, saying, "Turn the channel, Marge." And they're like, "That's our Homer." And start laughing while the casket is going down. Again, this was one of the most really creative, very amazing episodes of this classic seasons of The Simpsons. And definitely one that I absolutely adore. And again, I love Frank Grimes' character, especially how he was like, if an actual human, like if one of us actually was in a cartoon universe like The Simpsons and came across somebody like Homer, we would probably have the same reaction too. I mean, hopefully not to the point where we get electrocuted to death, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I'd like to know what y'all think.